Hello, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. I was actually going to review three different Spider-Man comics until I found out that it would have been too convoluted because it involves a lot more backstory. Funnily enough, though, the one I'm doing today is going to require a bit of backstory, but not as much. So, we're looking at Amazing Spider-Man number 166, which is one where the lizard fights against a humanoid dinosaur who was originally a human being who stole Dr. Connor's lizard formula and then transformed himself into a humanoid dinosaur by going to the Savage Land and then going there to see a dinosaur, and then extracting the blood of a Stegosaurus and then putting it into that serum, the lizard serum, and turning himself into a humanoid dinosaur. I guess you could say he's kind of mentally ill. Anyway, so let's get into this backstory that you need to know to understand this comic. When he first became the Lizard, Dr. Curtis Connors lived in Florida, and Peter Parker did not know him. So J. Jonah Jameson challenged Spider-Man to go fight the Lizard in Florida in his newspaper. Peter tells J. Jonah Jameson that the both of them should go to investigate the lizard they'd heard about. Jameson refuses, so Peter becomes Spider-Man, goes to Jameson, traps him in his webbing, and then tells him he doesn't like him writing editorials against him. He then tells him he accepts the lizard challenge. Jameson then tells Peter they are both going to Florida to see the lizard. Right after getting there, Peter finds the lizard. He turns into Spider-Man and fights against him, but to no avail. Later, after escaping the lizard, he finds out about Dr. Curtis Connors and goes to his house. He meets his wife Martha Connors, and then she tells Spider-Man the truth that Curtis Connors is the lizard. Spider-Man manages to create a serum that works in turning the lizard back into Curtis Connors. He would not meet Peter Parker till years later when he would end up working for Empire State University there in New York City. Also, a minor plot point that also requires backstory is that J. Jonah Jameson back in the early 60s stories when Peter was still in high school teamed up with a scientist who created a robot called a Spider Slayer, then failed to capture him. This happened a few more times over the years. Sadly, Spencer Smythe died of radiation poisoning in Amazing Spider-Man number 192, though Marvel Wikia says he was brought back to life by the Jackal along with a bunch of other characters in a comic that takes place after one more day. But it's a load of malarkey. They aren't the actual people. The Jackal is a human being, not a god, regardless of what people at Marvel say. I will eventually be talking about the Jackal and why every story since they brought him back in the 90s has been a load of malarkey as well. Anyway, in the comic just before this, Stegron in his dinosaur form wreaks havoc and Spider-Man tries to defeat him, but fails. And later tries fighting him at a museum where Stegron uses a device to make some dinosaur skeletons come to life. That is really cool. Spider-Man gets away from the dinosaur skeletons and then fights against Stegron until Stegron knocks a bunch of rubble on him. Then that comic ends with Curtis Connors turning into the lizard. So let's look at Amazing Spider-Man number 166 and see if this succeeds as a Christmas comic. This cover is really cool. You see Spider-Man from behind with both the lizard and Stegron coming towards him. The art is absolutely amazing.
Mike Esposito did a great job on both this comic and the comic right before here, whose images I just showed you. Also, coincidentally, Lynn Wein, who I mentioned in my last review, was also the writer of this very comic. So he wrote Spider-Man, the Hulk, and X-Men. That is very cool. It is just a coincidence that Lynn Wein ended up getting mentioned 2 reviews in a row. I had actually, like I said, planned to review something else. Anyway, back to the comic. So, the comic starts with Spider-Man complaining about having to deal with Stegron and wishing that the Avengers weren't outside New York right now. Then he goes into Dr. Connor's home, only to get attacked by the Lizard. Lizard knocks him out the window, and they both start falling 4 stories. But of course, Spider-Man uses his webbing to save himself. But he gets attacked by Lizard again while swinging. Amazingly, Spider-Man somehow manages to throw him several feet. Lizard goes down a sewer hole. Then, because Spider-Man is in the street, a bunch of cars start swerving to miss him. Spidey then decides to go back to Curtis Connor's house. He sees Martha, who welcomed him, and he tells her he knows Connors has turned into the Lizard again. He helps her put up her Christmas tree. Don't you wish you had someone as strong as Spider-Man to help you put up your Christmas tree? That would be nice. Anyway, Martha tells him that their son Billy was kidnapped by Stegron. Stegron made Curtis do an experiment for him, but the strain of working on it made Curtis turn into the Lizard. Spidey promises her that he will get Curtis and their son back, and that he owes Dr. Connors that and much more. Then we cut to J. Jonah Jameson, who is walking into a building, and we see his then girlfriend and future wife Marla yelling that she wants to go into the building with him. She also grabs his cigar from him and tells him he should not smoke it. She damages it with a device nearby, but it is still smokable. He yells at her that it was a $5 Savannah. But this was 1977, when $5 was a lot more money than it is now. Sadly, Marla got killed off by Alistair Smythe in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, number 654, in February of 2011. Though that comic is after one more day, so I don't really want to review it. Also, for some reason, Marla Jameson is not listed on Marvel Wikia. Anyway, Marla takes Jameson into this room, where she reveals to him she has built another Spider Slayer to defeat Spider-Man. He is, of course, now happier. Then we cut to the next scene, where Mary Jane runs into Robbie Robertson's wife, Martha, and son Randy. And yeah, Stan Lee named both Robbie's wife and Dr. Connor's wife Martha. And it's the same name as Superman's and Batman's moms. Then she goes into a Christmas party where Flash Thompson, Harry Osborn, and Liz Allen are. Flash was Harry's roommate at the time, by the way. Harry and Liz announced they are getting married. I mentioned them being a married couple briefly in my One More Day and One Moment in Time review, but it isn't that important to the plot, so I am not saying much about it. Next we cut to Billy and Stegron at the museum, where Billy yells at him, but Stegron tells him to shut up and goes on about his insane scheme to bring dinosaurs back to life, and that Dr. Connors is going to bring him a formula that will help him clone dinosaurs. Then more heated discussion happens between Billy and Stegron until the Lizard comes in and says he needs to get what Stegron took from Connors. Then Stegron and the Lizard fight each other. It is a very good drawn fight scene. Kudos to Mike Esposito. Anyway, the dinosaurs he brought to life come closer to Billy, and then Lizard snatches Billy with his tail. Then Spider-Man comes in and starts fighting the dinosaurs by snagging them with his webbing. It's a Tyrannosaurus and a Triceratops. Then he yanks them into each other, making them fall on their side. Spider-Man fighting dinosaurs is pretty cool, by the way. Also, I somehow didn't notice this, but this fight has been taking place on the road outside the museum, so the dinosaurs knocked over 2 cars. Spidey then goes to help the people out of their car. The police then drive up. He goes back to the museum to fight the lizard and Stegron. It turns out Spidey put a serum to cure the lizard into his webbing, and so the lizard turns back into Dr. Connors. After seeing if Dr. Connors is okay, Stegron knocks Spider-Man back and then escapes with Billy. After making sure he is okay, Spidey leaves Dr. Connors alone to go rescue Billy from Stegron. He is able to catch up with Stegron and knocks him back while catching Billy. Also, the dinosaurs knocked over the police cars, and now the policemen have been knocked unconscious by it. While on the ground, Spidey and Billy are about to get attacked by the dinosaurs, when suddenly they turn back into skeletons. Dr. Connors turns out to have done that. He reversed the device mentioned earlier to turn the dinosaurs back into skeletons. Then we cut to Stegron, who hides from Spider-Man and complains about being cold and unable to find shelter. He jumps into the icy river nearby and seemingly dies. Sorry if this makes any of you sad. So, at the end of the comic, Spider-Man spies on the window of the building Dr. Connors, Martha, and Billy are in, and thinks about how happy they are and that how good it is that everything worked out the way it did. Funnily enough, the last shot here of Spidey swinging by a Christmas tree is something I used in a Christmas card I made a few years ago, and I didn't even know it was from this comic until reading it for this review, with a caption that the next comic will be about Marla and Jameson's Spider Slayer. I do not plan to review that one, though, for a while.
This comic is actually pretty good, and it is really cool to see Spider-Man fighting against dinosaurs. Well, next time we're going to look at the last appearance, at least in 1991, of the Grey Hulk, otherwise known as Joe Fixit. See ya then.